Hi guys, Jamie Lee Media here. So Sunday just gone, I was at Arrowe Hospital with March With Midwives. I'll let them explain what they're about.
So I'm Emma. I'm a midwife. I work in the NHS. I qualified about 5 years ago, and I've worked here at Arrowe Park for about 2 years now. The reason that we're here today, March with Midwives, is part of a national campaign. So across the country today, in about 35 different locations, there's vigils being held. The aim of them is to kind of raise awareness and get a message to the government to say that maternity services are in crisis and we need support, we need funding, and they need to act now. We've been talking about this for years, and it's happening now. We're at the point where we're actually seeing the effects now. So midwives are leaving the profession between April 2021 and April 2022. About 600 midwives left midwifery profession, and they haven't been replaced. So all that's happening is that staffing levels are dropping on the units. Midwives are having to work through their breaks, their unpaid breaks. They're working past the end of their shifts. They're going without food, without drinks, without stopping for a wee because they haven't got time. And we're only just keeping our heads above water. It can't carry on. The more that those working conditions carry on, the more midwives look at leaving. In the recent polls that the Royal College of Midwives did, they found that about 60% of midwives are looking at leaving the profession. And out of those 60%, about 67% of them said that they don't feel like they can currently provide safe, quality care on the wards at the moment because of the working conditions. So, what's going to happen in kind of years to come? Only in the next few years, we've had 600 leave in the last 12 months. Where are we going to be in a year's time, 2 years' time? And the recent Embrace report, so that's a report that looks at maternal deaths during pregnancy, childbirth, and the 12 months after having a baby. That was only published earlier on this month. And what they found is a 24% increase in the number of women who have died during that childbirth continuum than when they last looked at it a couple of years ago. So that we're seeing actual statistical kind of results of the working conditions and the current crisis. We've been talking about it, but we're here now. It's happening. So that's why we're here. That's what we're the message that we want to get to the government is they've got to act now. They've got to fund more midwifery. They've got to look at working conditions because we're seeing the effects on kind of the maternity services, and the conditions that midwives have to work in are the conditions that women have to give birth in. Can a midwife who's tired, exhausted, not eaten, not had a drink, has worked through her breaks, can that midwife provide safe care when she's got more than one patient to look after? We're going to see kind of safety issues on wards because of the working conditions. So something has to change.
Internally, is there enough support in place, especially for your mental health?
I would say no. Midwives are leaving the profession because not just because of the working conditions, but the burnout, the absolute massive effect that it's having on them. Again, the polls that the RCM did, they looked at student midwives. 96% of student midwives reported mental health concerns since the start of the pandemic because of the pressures that's on them. The student midwives are supposed to be supernumerary, but we couldn't work without them because they are propping up the workforce at the moment, and that's having a massive effect on their mental health as well. The midwives that have been here today that have left the profession in the last couple of years because they just can't take it anymore. They can't take those working conditions. They can't take the burnout and the impact that it's having on them. So, as individuals, we're a really supportive group of people. It's part of the nature of the job. So we support each other, but there's only so long that you can kind of support each other through those situations. There's got to be something more put in place, and that's what we need the government to do.
So I'm Ray, and I am a midwife and a nurse, and I've been a midwife for 18 years, but left the profession a few years back full time because of the hard conditions that are out there.
So what are we doing here today?
I've come to support my colleagues at the hospital who I used to work with, and I still do. I do bank shifts up here to keep my registration, to keep my skills, and because I still love the job fundamentally, because I've worked it, I've known how hard it is at the moment for them. I still carried guilt that I couldn't carry on, but I was having mental health problems and physical problems. The stress and strain on me was just too much. And it got to the point where I crashed my car after working all night and having, been hours during the day as well because of the way the system was working, that I thought, no, something's got to give here. And it's frightening when you are worried about going on duty because you don't know if there could be something horrendous happen. That's not why we're in it. So I did make a decision that 3 years ago I left working midwifery. I'm still a nurse and I work as a nurse, but I went into general practice because the hours and things were more suitable and I didn't have the same stress that I did. But it breaks my heart that I needed to change profession almost back to nursing from midwifery in order to be able to have a lifestyle that wasn't giving me the same negativity.
Yeah. What would you say needs to change?
Staffing, end of. We were being pulled from pillar to post. We were working a continuity of carer team, and the way it was set up was to have a caseload of women, look after their needs, and do your fair share of on-calls for the birth of the baby. And on paper and in theory, that is fine. In reality, we were also having to come in to cover clinics, labour wards, postnatal wards, because there just wasn't enough staff to fulfil the model. Now that model's come under question now and is actually no longer being rolled out nationally on the NHS, which was the original plan, because there just does not have enough staff to sustain it. And I think that's what we're seeing over and over, that they rely more and more on the staff that they have. And that's one of the reasons why I still carry some guilt that I'm not there. And it does add to the pressure knowing, and it is a guilt I still carry, knowing that I left, although I am still now filling a hole in another area in nursing. And it's just not enough people to cover everything that needs to be done. And so the pressure goes more and more on those that are there. But there's only so much as human beings that we can take as workers, as carers. And the nature of the profession is that a lot was coming to it because we're caring individuals. We want to make a difference. We want to provide the best quality care. And then that has a negative impact when you feel you can't do that because the resources just aren't there for you. It's also frustrating when your managers are trying, but their hands are tied. The management here, I know, were doing their best when I was working at the hospital to make ends meet, to cover situations. And at the end of the day, there's a woman in labour, they need care, they've got to find somebody to care for her. I get that. That's not where the book needs to go higher up than that. It needs to be the government realising that at the moment it's not an attractive proposition to come and work in the NHS. They can put all the fancy adverts on TV that they like, but the reality of it is nurses and doctors and physios and portering staff and cleaners who are working above and beyond for worse pay than you would get working in retail or other areas where a lot of colleagues have left to go and do because they can think, well, I can do in the same hourly rates but without the responsibilities and stresses that are coming. So if we want to keep the NHS alive, and I truly believe we should keep the NHS alive, I think it's a great system that we've got that other countries don't have. We need to be making sure that it's fully resourced and adequately staffed. And at the moment, that's not the case. It's had underfunding for over 10 years, and that's getting worse, not better.
Oh, hi, I'm Rebecca Smith. I'm a retired senior lecturer in midwifery. I used to work at the University of Manchester.
So what would you say have been some of the biggest changes that you've seen?
Oh, we've had, in midwifery, we've had masses of changes. I mean, the terrible thing is that there hasn't been funded adequately. So we've got not as many student midwives that are being trained as we need. And the difficulty is there's more and more midwives that are being dissatisfied in midwifery, frightened because they feel it's not safe anymore to work as a midwife. So they've been leaving. And of course, if you're not having the number of midwives coming in to be student midwives, you can't fill in the places. And that's why we've got such a shortage. I mean, we're probably about 3,500 short of midwives in England. And even when they looked at, I think it was the April this year figures, we were nearly 700 midwives down from the previous 12 months. So that just goes to show how many midwives are leaving, and we aren't replacing them at the speed that we should. I mean, for instance, I think it's over a third of all midwives that are working at the moment are over 50 years of age. Well, they've only got 10 years maximum in them, and they're the 50-year-olds. But obviously some are 55, 56, they probably only got a couple of years left in them to work. So we could potentially lose a third of the workforce in the next less than 10 years. Wow. But if you've got a depleted workforce anyway, and then you also have to remember that, you know, those midwives that will be retiring, you know, some of them have got maybe 30, 35 years experience, maybe 40 years experience as a midwife. Well, how can you replace, you know, if you have like, say, 10 midwives with 35 years experience, that's 350 years of experience that you're losing. Now, how can you replace that with 10 midwives that have only maybe got a year's experience? How can you compare 350 years with 10 years? But that's what, so the like for like is the replacement. Even if the government were to say, well, we're replacing them with the newly qualified midwives, you just have to see that the skills won't be there. And we need these senior midwives to stay in practice to be able to train up the new midwives.
So in an ideal world, support-wise, what do you think needs to be brought in?
I think what we need to do is to get more people coming into midwifery and to have more places available. You actually need to stop the fee paying, because the midwives are paying £9,300 a year just to train. So we need to stop that fee paying. We need to bring back the bursary, so we provide people with some money to do their training. I believe that training should be brought back into local hospitals. I think we've not got enough lecturers. I was a senior lecturer in my last position. We've not got enough lecturers to be able to train the midwives. We've not got enough midwives in the clinical area with enough expertise and experience to be able to supervise junior midwives. So we need more midwives to do the training in the hospital. We need more lecturers to do the training in the classroom. We need to bring back the bursary and stop the fees. So there's a lot that needs to be done.